8, somewhere in that vicinity. Well, anyway, we lived in Agra until I was in the 8th grade. Then we moved to Chandler. And we lived there just 1 year. And they opened, prior they opened the powder plant, DuPont powder plant. And they called my dad. My dad was a machinist as well as electrician and multitude of other things. He could do anything. He built Aunt Voice's built-in cabinets in the kitchen, and she didn't have built-in cabinets at the section house.
Mm-hmm.
But when they moved over across the street from us, they bought that little white house. I think it had 2 bedrooms, a living room, a great big dining room. They had a day bed in there beside the potbelly stove in the winter, and a big dining table. So it was a good sized room. I don't know what it started out to be, but anyway. And then off of that had been a screened-in porch. So they took the screened-in porch and put all built-in cabinets along the one side of it. And then over on this side, she had the pie safe. Remember those little pie safes?
Oh, yeah.
Had the designs on the little thingies that held them together in the end.
Yeah.
And she had something else. Oh, I know the water bucket always sat right there in the corner of the cabinet. So whenever it got empty, she'd just jingle the dipper in it.
Mm-hmm.
Melvin knew, okay, I gotta go fill the bucket. And that was a pump. It was not a pitcher pump, it was a pump, one of the big ones.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and then they had a smokehouse. It was a house that was built just adjacent to the kitchen. It was probably maybe from here to the fireplace. Well, whenever they butchered in the fall, when it was the right time to do the hogs and stuff, here came the Chesteens and their kids that lived down the way that were probably in their 40s, maybe early 50s by that time, and they helped with that. So they would put the hams in a, I believe it might have been a sugar sack, good size, probably 50-pound sugar sack.
Mm-hmm.
And they would hang from the ceiling. And how they sealed that up, the ham in the bag, they melted, they made whatever this fat is on the hog,
Yeah, lard.
it made lard. So they would dip this in that and wait until it cooled, and then they'd hang them up. So then, whenever you got ready to use any of it, you just opened the bag a little bit and got what you wanted out and tied it back up and put it back up at the ceiling. Now, why we didn't get ptomaine, I don't know. Never did. But sausage, she made these little bags that were about so long and about this big around out of muslin, I think. I think they had to be kind of a special material. Anyway, she made those, and whenever you got it stuffed, it was about this big around.
Yeah.
And then she'd poke all this sausage down in this bag, and it got hung in the ceiling. Well, also there was a separator in there, and they separated the milk twice a day.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the separator was really a tricky thing. You have to get it going first with this crank, good sized handle, and you kept turning and everything. Okay, so then you get through, and then you want to stop it. You step out of the way, and it'll stop by itself. You can't reach over there and just hold it until it quits. Because I remember one time it knocked me down. And I remember that very vividly. I probably 6 or 7 at that time. But it was, and the section house was 2 stories. Well, downstairs was the kitchen and another room, and that's where the potbelly stove was in a section house. Then across from the hall right there was a living room and a bedroom. Okay, well, at the end of this hall was a stairway that went up to the top floor. The top floor was not sectioned off. It was just one gigantic open space.
Like an open attic.
Right. Except it was total, it was probably 8 feet high. Or 6 feet high. Well, no, 8 feet standard city. So it's 8 feet. Well, Melvin had a little room over here at the side, and it had a half bed in it, and seems like, I believe there was a dresser that had a mirror over it, but the dresser had drawers in it for his clothes, and they made a little closet. Then they hung burlap bags all across and down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that was his privacy. When he went in there, you pushed the flap back and went in, okay? So there's another part of that was one big area. Well, Granddad could half sole shoes. And he had a little, I don't know what you call them. Anyway, some little frames that were, I don't know if they were iron or some kind of metal. They were heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd stick that in the shoe and turn it upside down on this thing, and then he sat down here on this little seat and would do whatever he had to do to keep the sole on there. Okay, so that was all an open space. Okay, then they had the burlap bags to section off 2 more sections, like 2 bedrooms.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, one of those was Artis's, and the other one, I guess, was the guest room. It didn't have much in it. But Artis had a bed, and I know she had a violin. She decided she was going to learn how to play the violin.
Oh, really?
So, when I spent the night over there, every evening, she'd get her violin out with the music and all this stuff, and played Tiny Baby Brother. That's all she ever learned. And the train came through at midnight. It jarred every window in that house, every door, anything at all that's going to move. It got vibrated. And I thought to myself, this is really strange. So I didn't spend too many nights over there. I was over there a lot to play with Velvet in the yard, but I didn't sleep over there. We lived 4 or 5 blocks away, and it was a lot quieter. We always heard the train because they whistled just as they got around before they got to the bend in the track. I guess it was coming around from the north, went south a little ways, and then it went west. I know it was east-west. Well, one time, the ticket agent, he had a telegraph. And if you wanted to send a telegraph, it's Western Union, okay? You go there and walk up to a window. He'd give you a little form, and you would print on there or whatever you did, and then he would telegraph this to wherever it's supposed to go. Okay, he threw that away because he got a new one. The train MK&T sent him another one. So his name is I Betzer. I remember him. I thought that's an odd name, but nevertheless.
Yeah, I Betzer.
So he threw it away. So Granddad asked Betzer if he could have that. He said, sure, it went to the garbage. It's going to the garbage. So he brought it home for Melvin. Never dreaming that Melvin could put it together and have a telegraph. Which he did. And I guess it worked until he got caught with it. I don't remember how that turned out. But I know he messed with that for a long, long time before he got it where I don't know what it did. I don't know if it really sent messages, or you'd have to know the Morse code in order to do that. So I really don't know what he did and how it worked, but he got it fixed. So I thought to myself, my dad could fix anything. And my dad, if it needed a part to it or something, he'd dream up how to make the part.
Yeah.
So I thought, I guess Melvin inherited that from him. I guess, and that may be where he liked the electricity. Because Daddy wired section houses, and he also wired farmhouses for electricity. The section house did not have electricity, and they did not have natural gas when we moved there. But my dad got this all put together and did it. So Melvin, I'm sure, is 8, so he probably observed a lot of this that was going on.
Oh, sure.
I don't know. But whatever. And then at section house, this room I said was real big where the potbelly stove was. Granddad fixed the quilting thingies to hold up the quilting frame.
Cooling frames, yeah.
Yeah. So every day, whenever the ladies got their chores done for the day, they'd get together at Voice's house and they quilted. Well, I was too little to learn how to quilt, so I just played around, and mainly underneath it. That was my tent.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You could hide under there.
And it was real roomy under there. The only thing that was under there were just these knees that were just partially under there because they were stooped over like so, quilting. Well, they always, Aunt Boise, they quilted 2 quilts every fall. One for Mother and one for her. And they shared their scraps and stuff on cutting out the designs and whatever they were going to do. So, anyway, he fixed it so that I think it had 4. There were 4 cords that were or ropes or something that went up through these dudes in the ceiling
Mm-hmm.
to hold this up. So the ladies would grab a hold of that and pull them off, and okay, so then the quilt went up to the ceiling and stayed until the next day. So then they just lowered it down, did their quilting, and put it back up.
Well, that was handy because I've worked around quilting frames in the middle of rooms, and that
And I still got the quilting frame.
it doesn't make very much room around there. Can't believe you weren't old enough to quilt.
No, I was, I probably might have been, I swear when we moved there, so this had been probably a year or two after that. I might have been 6 or 7. But they never did let me quilt.
I quilted some when I was 6. Probably wasn't the best quilter of the group.
Your mom did beautiful quilts.
Oh, yeah.
I have no idea what you do. I can crochet, I can knit.
Your mother did some great crocheting. I remember some bedspreads that she crocheted. They were really beautiful.
And I was just thinking the other day, we didn't have patterns in that day and time, but she got a little magazine of a sort. It wasn't very big, it was only about so big, but it was called A Household. In that few pages that she got through the mail every month was a crochet pattern. And 9 times out of 10, she'd do it. She did tablecloths, bedspreads, and those that have all these little motifs, they're called, but you have to hook those together somehow.
Yeah.
And I know the last tablecloth she was working on, now tablecloths she used a size 30 thread, and the other one she used the bedspread cotton. So this was the 30 thread, and she brought it over and she said, you know, I can't figure out how these are supposed to, these little motifs, at that time they're about this big around for the tablecloths, they're very small. And she said, I can't figure out how to put these together. So we put it on the dining table and stretched it out, and we really worked on that to figure out how to get it longer one way than the other way, because the table's longer than it is wide. So we finally figured that out. She said, I don't think I'll do another one. And she never did. But she continued to quilt. She didn't have the big quilting frames, but she made the tops.
Yeah.
Quilt tops. And oh my, I don't know how many there were, 8 or 10. I said, let's have somebody quilt those. Oh no, she said, they take up too much space. I said, okay. So after she passed away, I found a lady over at Duncan that quilted, and I'd take 3 or 4 of them at a time over there with the batting and all the stuff, and lining and all this stuff. You have to go with it. And she'd do those, and I'd take her 4 more. So finally we got them all done. But she's right, it did take up a lot of space, which I have the top of a linen cabinet and they're full. But I figured the kids would like those because, well now one of them is on one of the beds in my bedroom, and it is the little blue and white check gingham with the plain blue squares with it. So that's the last one she made, and she really made it for Jarrett. He was about, I don't know, 2 or 3 or 4, because he was 3, I believe, when she passed away. And Jarrett always liked to, he'd pick up something and play like it was a microphone. So he'd go to everybody. What is it? Anyway, he wanted to ask questions and stuff like this. And here's this microphone, and it's going to be what he thought was going to be a record. Well, of course, he was only 3, so therefore that never happened. But some of the every time he comes, I said, Jarrett, do you want to take your quilt and other things that Mother made for you? Oh, no, Graham, I think I'll leave them here. I know they're safe. Okay.
All right, Sherry, what were you up to?
He now is, let's see, Danny is 52, so he must be 47. So I figured he's got a big house, but he also has 3 children. So, fine with me, Jarrett, that's just fine. I'm thinking, if you just take some of your stuff, I'd have a whole lot more room.
You just got to box it up, and when you come, say, here's your box. It goes out with you.
He might take it in view of that. I don't know. But what our attic up here above the garage is floored, and one section of that is Danny and Jarrett's toys, of which one is a Hot Wheels. Last one, Danny had a Hot Wheel when he was little, but this was Jarrett's, and it doesn't have all the pieces to it right now. And I told Lindsay about this yesterday, and she said, "Oh, that's worth a lot of money." And I said, "Lindsay, it doesn't. It's not all together. Does it make any difference?" But she said, "That's probably the only one in existence." I said, "I don't know." And then they have the little Hot Wheels cars that ran on these little tracks.
Yeah.
Well, they're up there too. So they have one section for their stuff. We have one section for my mother's stuff, and one section for I guess most of it, I guess, is tax reports of Mother and Dad's, because some of it goes back, way back to '67. I know they're up there. And I told Gayla, but I said, Gayla, I haven't been in the attic in 5 years. And I said, I can't get up there now. And she said, well, I can't do that right now, but we'll do that another day, okay? So as we find things that are really, really old like that, we stack them in the garage, then I call File 13, and they come and get them and shred them.
Shred them off, good.
And it works pretty good. But Melvin and I had lots of good times.
Yeah, he mentioned that you two did enjoy some fun things together.
Oh,
but he wouldn't really tell me about what.
Okay, it was unready before you got here. Probably it was, come to think of it. Because they would have already moved from the section house before you got here. Because
I can remember the house with no Leslie, but I can't remember anything before that, except in pictures.
her washing machine at that point in time was gasoline powered Maytag. Pop, 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 pop. Every Monday. No matter what.
Ooh, you wanted that outside too, or away from the house.
Yes.
Ooh, that
Well, it was putting out
yeah.
carbon monoxide, among other things.
Didn't have to worry about the water or anything. You just put the hose down, let it run on the yard. But that's the whole section of the yard didn't have any grass. But they did have two sections that did have grass. in front of the section house, which was it didn't back it rails. There's a little hill there, and all you had to do is walk up this little hill. Well, Melvin and I used to take pennies and put them on the rails,
Yeah.
and then wait for the train to come by, and they'd be flattened out. So that was interesting. And then he had to, one of his chores was, he had to feed and water the cows that were in the stock pen waiting to be shipped to Kansas City. So I couldn't get in there, but I could sit on top of the rail fence and watch him while he did it. And then he learned to milk, so I'd watch him milk and I hold cow's tail so it didn't swallow him in the face. And sometimes a kitty cat came by and he'd squirt a little bit of milk over there in the kitty's mouth, and boy, she liked that. The cat and the dogs didn't go in the house.
Yeah.
So that was interesting. But there was a furnace there, had two gigantic iron pots that fit in the top of it, and it was made out of concrete. I guess Granddad made it. I don't know. Maybe it was there when they moved there. I don't know that, because I was 4 when we moved to Agra, and they were already in the section house. So I don't know what happened before that. But one pot held the boiling water for the wash, and the other pot was a little bit cooler to fill the tub for the rinse. And somebody, I don't know who did that either, but I wish I'd had it. There was an iron, I guess maybe it was a bucket. I don't know. It was about so big, about this big around. Okay, I guess they didn't use it anymore for that purpose. And somebody had taken concrete and covered the whole top and sides and stuck marbles in it. And it was so pretty. I thought that was the prettiest thing. And I thought to myself, you know what? When they moved from the section house, I bet somebody just hauled that off. And now it might be really, it's definitely an antique.
Definitely an
So
antique.
it might be worth some money, but anyway, we had that. And let's see what else. Now the bicycle riding was a little bit challenging because there wasn't any grass from their it'd be a driveway, I guess, if you want to call it that. Anyway, getting the car from there to the road. There wasn't any grass. It was 2 ruts. And when it rained, they filled up, and it was all right. But then, when it all dried out, this became like sand, except it was really kind of gooey. Man, that was the hardest thing. You could just pedal and pedal and pedal and didn't move an inch, hardly. But
I bet it held you upright, though.
yeah, it did.
You didn't like her.
Really did. But
Well, where did you skate at?
pardon?
Where did you do your skating? You didn't have sidewalks, did you?
Sadie?
You're skating. You say
Skating. Oh,
you say
we lived in a house called the Prompt House. They were in the oil business and had moved somewhere else. They put all of their furniture in one room, and we rented the rest of it.
Oh,
So in front of that house was a sidewalk.
okay.
And it was a sidewalk going up to the porch. It had a big wraparound porch.
Mhm.
And That's where I learned to skate. And then one time I was just coasting on the skates, sort of sitting down, and I put my hands up here on the step, and when I did, I caught both thumbs between the wheel of the skate and the concrete. That didn't feel good. They puffed up and everything. But that isn't the worst thing that happened. Melvin and I decided one time we would clean out the creek. There was a creek that ran between all that row of houses and where a long time before we got to section house. So we decided we were going to clean out this creek, put in goldfish. And if we get a little hole here, the goldfish will stay in it. Well, that was a big mistake.
No one told the goldfish that, did they?
They didn't stay. They went on down the creek because it was running constantly. I guess it was fed by a spring. I don't know. But we got poison ivy. He didn't have as bad as I did. But man, I had that from here down. And it was in July or August. I mean, the hottest months, no air conditioning. We had an oscillating fan.
Yeah.
And my mother put everything on me that anybody told her. Well, then I got medicine poison because of using all of these home remedies. Well, we didn't have a doctor, so when I get really, really bad, they took me to the doctor in Cushing. Okay, Dr. Davis was his name, and he said, well, I'll tell you what, we'll use methylate. So that turned me red all the way down, and we tried that for a while and it didn't work. So somebody told them about a doctor at Perkins, which is a little town.
Yeah, we know where Perkins is.
Perkins, okay.
Yeah.
Is it still there?
Yeah.
I'm surprised. Okay. So
Yeah, south of Stillwater, you're going to need.
they told us about a doctor there, Dr. Wilhite. Okay. So we go there. And he gave me a shot. And I think I had to go back and have, I don't know, maybe one or two. I'm not sure. But anyway, I got rid of the poison ivy, but I had to use iodine on it besides the shots. Man, did that burn. Because if you don't, it's already, your skin is already
Sensitive.
open and have been for a good long while. And it was torture. And it also turned me brown. Okay, so I went from red to brown. And Melvin and I didn't clean out any more creeks. But at one house we lived in, it was Mrs. I don't know, some other lady's house, and she passed away, so they were renting her house. Right, it's just a hop and a jump from there to the schoolyard. Well, there was a junkyard behind there. So Mel and I decided we'd just go down to the junkyard one day. And we found some old cars. And he got in one, I got in one, and we just had the best time because we were running races and, you know, we weren't even moving. I didn't even have top, it just had a seat. On both of them, and I thought, you know, later I thought about that. Those could have been covered with snakes.
Sure.
And
Or
we
spiders,
didn't see
or
one.
Mice or rats.
Not a single one. I thought, you know what? We were really lucky on that because we got in a snake bite. We probably would have been dead before we could have ever gotten any help because it was 12 miles from Agra to Cushing, and then it's further than that to go back to this Perkins doctor. So I thought, well, God was looking after us.
Probably made enough noise that any snake with any sense had left. Scared them.
They definitely, I don't like snakes. My grandson, Danny, bless his heart, he can just go out and pick up any kind of a snake. He knows exactly how to handle them. I guess he learned it in biology class. And he took his wife with him one night. They you have to get snakes at night. And lo and behold, when she saw one, she screamed, and it ran, and he couldn't catch it. So he took her home, never let her go again. That was just a side issue. Now, at the section house, there was a huge mulberry tree. Well, I could not climb a tree, but Melvin could. So he'd climb up there and sit on a limb and pass me the mulberries. So we'd sit there and eat these mulberries, hadn't even been washed, and most mulberries have some kind of little teensy tiny crawly insect. I thought to myself later on, wonder we hadn't gotten all kind of disease.
You got a little extra protein.
Yep. That's what I was thinking. Had protein this time.
It was so funny. I could sit on their fence had a board about so big on the top. So I could sit on that, and I could climb the fence up to that point and sit on the top of it while he passed me the mulberries. But if let one of those mulberries get on Aunt Boyce's white sheets, she was not pleased.
Those things that
Neither was Mother.
Ooh.
But we lived about, I guess you're going to mark it off city blocks. We probably lived about 3 or 4 blocks. But you could see the section house from our front door. And we had some good times. Well, and one year he decided, let's siphon a Coke into a watermelon.
Why in the world would you want to do that? Sounded logical at the time, I bet, though, didn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Sure, why not?
Yeah. So I said, all right. So he got a pipe cleaner from someplace. Granddad didn't smoke a pipe, neither did Daddy.
No.
So I don't know.
Walter smoked cigars. I can remember his cigars.
Anyway, the Coke, we put it in the bottle, one end, and the other end, it has this wire thing, so you could make a little hole there and get it to go to the center of the watermelon. Well, we never could leave it long enough. So the next day, he goes out and looks at it, and he said, well, Annie, nothing's happened yet, so I guess we better just eat it. So we just dropped the watermelon on the ground and sat down and ate it. And then one time, he built a shower. Hot, really hot. He had this, he got a barrel from somewhere. Anyway, I had to carry the water from the cistern to him and help him get it up the ladder so he could pour it in this maybe it's a tub. I don't know. It was some container that would hold the water. And he had some sort of a rope thing that he could, when he figured out that he could pull on it, and he would open something about this tub and let the water out. Okay, well, that takes a long time. How long did it take it to run out? 2 minutes. Here we go again, all in water. Well, he's on the ladder, and I'm toting the water pots. And the water, those buckets were, I think they were 12 quart because that's what Aunt Voice and Mother used. That was their green bean
Yeah.
container. Put the green beans in when they picked them. And for me it was kind of heavy.
Well, the buckets themselves empty were heavy when you're that age.
Yes, they were. I don't know how I did it.
I don't either. It's probably half a bucket because you couldn't carry anything more.
I only sloshed out some of it going to the shower.
You had a bath on the way, probably, as it was.
Probably. I never got under the shower because Melvin always hopped down and pulled the rope and it's on him. But we had some good times. Then the Chestings would come. Remember them?
I remember the name, but I don't,
Well, they had,
don't necessarily remember them.
see how many kids do they have? They had Jerry and Risa Bell. Let's see more. There would always be a whole bunch of kids. These others might have been the Chestings' grandchildren. I don't know. There were two of them. One was H.T. and the other one was Joanne. And then there were twins that lived over across the road from the Chestings, and they were Wanda and Norma. About, I guess they just told them they're coming to the Bateses, so they just all ran and got in the car. Well, I think looking back over this, I think Mrs. Chastain may have been a midwife.
I think she's the one that delivered Dad.
I think so.
Told me.
Because whenever AD got sick, I was just a little over 4, but I remember this real plain. AD was in a coma, and the only thing they could get down her was crushed ice. Well, I know Aunt Voices told Granddad, go get Mrs. Chester. And so he did. Well, Miss Chastain looked over the situation. She said, I don't know. So then my daddy drove them to Oklahoma City, and AD was admitted to University Hospital. I remember this. Then when AD gets well enough to come home, she was on insulin and had all of this paraphernalia that you had at that point in time, and she had an oil stove, had 3 burners, and if you wanted to bake anything, you put this portable oven on top of 2 of these burners, and that would make it hot enough to bake whatever you were going to put in there. Well, anyway, every morning she had to put this stuff in a tube and watch it and all this stuff, and I guess that's how she regulated her insulin.
Yeah, I bet.
And another thing, Ray Willis, he had sugar diabetes, and so did Billie Jean, and so did Cecil.
Yeah, I knew Cecil did.
So I don't know exactly how that runs in families, but you may want to tell your kids about it.
Oh yeah, well, I've always been really careful with checking it. Growing up, they do. Make sure you check. Make sure every time you go to the doctor, he checks. You know. In fact, the first of each month, I check Robin mine glucose. This is a precautionary thing. So yeah, our kids are well aware of.
I believe Aunt Voice told me that it was the third generation, and if it were a boy, they would be more susceptible than a girl. I don't know why. I don't know. Maybe I don't know where she got her information. But she used to always tell me, Annie, if you don't quit eating so much candy, you are going to have uh, one time we made, let's see, what is sheep shower. Remember sheep showers?
It sounds familiar, but
Okay, now there's two different kinds. It's a wild green plant.
okay.
One kind has little yellow flowers. That's not it. That is snake sheep showers, and they are not good to eat. Okay, so the sheep showers are kind of a tarty flavor, maybe similar to pomegranates. You like pomegranate?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, they're similar to that, but it takes. They're hard to find if you're going to make a pint of anything. So he decided, okay, well, let's make sheep shower wine.
Oh Lord, I didn't know he'd started winemaking then. I had no idea it went back that far.
Yep. Sure does. So we found these sheep showers. We had to walk the railroad track, but we found them and washed them and everything. Put them in this pint jar. And boys, he fixed us a pint jar that was nice and clean and not sterilized, but nevertheless, it was good enough. And a lid. Okay, so we fixed those all up, and I think you had to leave it for, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks. Period of time.
Yeah.
It never got past 2 days until, well, let's go try it and see how it is. And it was just like we put it in there. But he played like it was good stuff. Okay.
It was starting to get that flavor and age.
Yeah.
It was aging nicely.
Yes.
In
That's
2
right.
days.
2 days. Didn't have long to perk, as they call it. But let's see what else that might be. Oh, when they moved from the section house, the little white house over across the street from us,
Mm-hmm.
they had Daddy and Granddad and Boycie and Mom all decorated the whole house, the whole upstairs and downstairs at the section house for Halloween. They invited the whole town. Well, the whole town didn't amount to many people, but they all came. Anything that Bateses, Daddy Bates is in on this, man, I mean, they're ready to go. The whole town called him that. And they had some old, I know 2 rooms had some old springs, and of course it's dark as a dungeon,
Yeah.
and they'd already had electricity turned off and all that stuff, so it was really, really dark. Well, you had to walk over these bed springs, and there was no mattress, it was just the springs. If your foot was very big, it could have slid down through there. I didn't think about that till now, but too late. Nobody had any accidents, and each room had separate decor for Halloween. Then there were some that had sheets, and they were hung in different, like a maze. You had to walk down through here. Well, there'd be somebody behind here, as you made it part of the way down, that would jump out at you or something like this. Okay. Well, that was another project they did one time. And then Melvin and I, this one room, when it got real cold, they closed it off. It was just adjacent to their bedroom. But that was all right because their bedroom was cold too, so they could just run real fast. They'd heat bricks and put them to your feet and run, get in bed, and they'd be nice and warm. Okay, well, Melvin and I would cut out pictures of cars. We got the Cushing Daily Citizen newspaper every day and catalogs. Sears, Ward's, Spiegel, then there was another one. I don't know what it was, I forgot now, but anyway, if they had any pictures in there of cars or anything, maybe it's just a little car or something, we cut those out, and then we would line them up around on one wall on the floor. So then we'd have our cars and we could go places. I tell you, back in the early days, you had lots of different things.
Yeah.
Plus, whenever the chess teams came with all this carload of kids, we played games outside. Black Man, Red Rover, Annie Over. You had to throw a ball clear over the section house. Sometimes it landed on the rails, so they'd have to go get it.
Yeah.
And it was fun. It was fun. Kids nowadays just don't know how to live.
They don't know how to make fun for themselves sometimes.
No. If they would have not liked any of that at this point in time, they'd think that's the weirdest thing I've ever seen. Forget it. They'd rather go to their little computers or whatever's and enjoy that or TV shows. So but that's not bad either. You know, everything changes. But as I started to tell you a while ago, in the late 30s, war was brewing over in Europe. And Hitler was taking over the little countries, Poland and a whole bunch of little countries like that. Well, when the DuPont powder plant opened, we moved to Pryor. War was declared December the 7th, after we moved there in May. As soon as school was out in Chandler, we moved. I did the 8th grade in Chandler, just one grade. And then we got to Pryor, and the very next spring, next spring? Yeah, next spring the tornado comes. That's long before any weather was ever.
Advance warning.
Right. No, nobody knew anything about tornadoes or anything else because they never had one. Okay, it went right down Main Street. And it tore up our house considerably, but it was so we could still live there while it was being fixed, while Dad is fixing it. Well, some mother's knives wound up in the tree trunk out in the front yard. My dad tried every way in the world to get those out, and no way could he get them out. So she wasn't happy about that because those were her favorite knives.
Imagine.
But it blew all the windows out of our house, and when the door and the window, the west door blew open and blew off, and the windows blew out, my dad says, it's time to go to the cellar.
Well, he's a little slow on that pick there.
The cellar was right off of the screened-in porch, so it's only a 2 or 3 steps.
Yeah.
But we'd never been down there because it had water in it.
They always did, yeah.
But and we weren't going to be there that long anyway. We knew that. We'd just gotten there, so my dad hadn't had time. Well, there wasn't any grocery stores because they got blown away. The bank got blown away, and money was just laying there. Nobody ever stopped picking it up. And maybe a few people, but not very many. And the Baptist church was over maybe a half block from our house. Our house faced the playground on the elementary school. And across the street from that, on the corner, was the big Baptist church. Well, it looks like somebody had just dropped a bomb in the middle of it. And it just exploded. There wasn't anything, they had to take it all away. Well, the house next door to that's where one of my friends lived, the Burdicks. And her mom and sister got killed. She said last thing she saw of her mom was she was standing in a door facing, in the door, inside. But both of them got killed. The daddy and the brother were out at the farm east of town, so they didn't even know what was going on. And my friend Myra had a wedge in the fat part of her leg through here that went just about all the way through it. Well, it took me all one day to even find where she was.
Yeah.
And there she was, laying on a pallet in somebody's house. I don't know who it was. But when they found her, she had this wedge in her leg. Then they had to wait for a doctor to fix it. And I went back to Pryor once after that, after we moved to Shawnee, and she still wasn't living in a house above ground. First thing she had her dad do was build the cellar, and she lived in the cellar. And this is all from the 9th grade through, it'd be the 9th grade and sophomore year. I guess she lived there 2 years before they got the house above the ground where she'd stay in it.
Mm.
She wouldn't do anything unless it was in the cellar. And that was, to me, that was really sad.
Yeah, I can see why.
Yeah, she was petrified. There wasn't a stick left of their house. I don't know how she even managed to survive. Some of the houses, there was a curve there that went through town, one of the main highways, and the house there on the curve, one whole side was gone, and it was just the outside built-in cabinets, and they were outdoors. They didn't have any shelter or anything. So, and really the only thing I think that saved our house was the Thomases and Bartons were building a theater building, and it was one door down from where we lived. Okay, they had moved the house out next door to us, so that part of the theater building had no east end or west end, so the tornado sucked down through and under that like a tunnel. And otherwise I think we would have blown away. But that was not too good. And then my dad, when we came out of the cellar, he said, I don't know what's happened, but he said, I can tell you what, there must be a lot of damage. So by that time, the sirens had started. Fire trucks, anything else.
Yeah.
They were sounding their sirens, and so my dad went down and directed the traffic at this corner because we didn't have any street lights or anything. And because there was a Y right there, right on the other side of where the theater building was. One went to the east and one went to the sort of the southeast. And the streets, roads. But right behind us, there was a little country grocery store. Well, half of their groceries wound up in our backyard. I remember we had coffee, I don't know what all. So Mother just said, okay, come and get it. And so they put up a tent and collected all that they could and started a grocery store. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been any.
Yeah.
But that was one of the. And I don't know. Since then, in that part of the state, some little town called started with a P, got totally blown away. Wasn't Poto. It was something smaller than that. Where did you all get peaches and stuff?
Pryor.
Oh, Porter.
Porter.
Porter. Yeah.
We both say Pryor.
Huh?
We both said Pryor.
Yeah.
Porter.
Porter.
Well, maybe that was it. I don't know.
It could be there's not much there at Porter.
Porter got hit pretty hard at one time.
Yeah. There's not much.
We get ours now from Riggs. They're over by Spiral Mound. That's where we get them. Melvin used to buy his at Porter, but too many years they didn't have any peaches, so we started buying from Riggs.
But there's only about 3 places there.
Yeah.
Where you turn off.
Because somebody started blueberries the other day.
I've seen enough places that've gotten hit. We went up to visit Gene and everyone right after Shamrock got completely wiped out.
Yeah.
Tornado.
Yeah, Canadian.
Well,
We had sold it before and after in Canadian.
Melvin said they didn't rebuild it. So when he came back from World War II, he came to see us. We lived in Shawnee at that time, and I was about, let's see, I was probably 14 or 15 by then. Well, he was 4 years older than me. So I was older than that because he had already been and did his stint in the Navy. I never did know how long he was in the Navy, but I noticed in the obituary that it had all the details about that, so I haven't had time to read all of it yet. But anyway, we were so glad to see him. And Cecil Willis, they wouldn't take him in the military because he had sugar diabetes. So he and Jewel went to Oklahoma City and worked for Douglas, building airplanes. Okay, we moved to Shawnee. Daddy was a machinist too, and they called him to see if he'd come there because they needed whatever he could do on planes that had already did their missions and come back, and they were all beat up. So I know through the years Daddy said, you know, I invented a lot of pieces to go in airplanes, but he said I don't think I've ever heard of one of them falling, crashing. And I thought, well, that's good because he would have been buried right then and there if he had been responsible for fixing an airplane and it didn't hold or didn't work. But he worked for OCAD. Yvonne's mom and dad moved from Rosedale, which is close to Wynnewood in Pauls Valley, little bitty community, and to Shawnee. But his dad worked for Douglas. Daddy worked for OCAD because that was Oklahoma City Air Depot at that time, and he did the repairs. And Yvonne's dad had the air conditioning and stuff like that in the building where they were building new planes, not already been damaged. So that was interesting. And they both rode buses back and forth. It's only 45 miles, so it didn't take very long to get there. And that's how we met. He came to the south, I came from the north. It was still south of Mason-Dixon for me, but it was northeast, so it was considered north. And we met when we were 15. There's a picture in the, we might have forgotten it's even in there, but Lindsay brought it in here to show her mom yesterday. Levon and I, it was the Highway banquet. Highway was a club for the boys, high school boys. And I said, I think it might have been Valentine's Day because they didn't, girls were not allowed to that club, so I think they only had Christmas and Valentine's Day that they celebrated where their girlfriends could go with them, come to the party. So I think it may have been Valentine's Day. And we were 16 then, because we graduated at 17. And we were engaged by January the 1st after high school graduation. Then Ray goes to the Navy on January the 23rd, 1946. So, but boy, were we glad when the war was over.
I bet. A lot of people were.
Yeah. I remember I worked at Bear Drug. We didn't have a soda fountain. It was pharmacy. And I remember our boss coming and saying, okay, it's getting close to where they're going to sign the treaty, peace treaty. So as soon as they do, you lock up these doors and run outside and scream. So we did. But it was really sad that so many people lost. Melvin and I were really close during the war. While he was at sea, I'd send him packages, and we found out you do not send cookies in a cardboard box. The mice will eat them before, because he got one or two that didn't have a crumb left. So my mom and I created the fact we'll put them in a Crisco can. They were metal at that point, huh?
Yeah.
3-pound Crisco can, and we'd do the cookies and pack popcorn already in there, and send them that way. Then we'd send boxes that had Viennese sausages and mustard and whatever we could put in that were cans, not bottles. And I did the same thing when Ray was in boot camp. He didn't like the food. He really wasn't. He really got drafted. He didn't volunteer. I don't know if Melvin got drafted or if he was volunteered.
Well, basically he volunteered because he knew he was up for getting drafted. And he thought he could work out a better deal if he volunteered.
Well, that's kind of the way Lon was. he knew it was coming, and I think 5 of his friends, he and 5 of these boys from high school decided they would go to Oklahoma City and take the tests and everything and join up. So some of them went to the Marines, some of them went to the Navy, some to the Air Force. It's whatever the
Testing.
I guess their testing proved what they did. One of them was Gordon Cooper, who is one of our astronauts.
Yeah.
Well, he was one of them, and I thought, well, I guess he learned to fly after he got into the Air Force, and then he decided to go on to the
Keep on flying.
astronautical program. But Gayla gets a magazine called The Pioneer Woman, and after she reads it, she always brings it to me. And I thought, it's really, it'd be interesting to see if they do anything like we did in the pioneer days. They don't. I haven't found one yet that does.
It's all modernized. Yeah.
Yeah. Just like San Diego, we got all.
Take your food processor and.
Right.
Oh yeah. Not necessarily the sugar that does it.
No.
That, causes.
They have discovered that now.
Yeah.
But back in the early days, diabetes was, it was like Parkinson's.
Oh yeah.
No, you never heard of it until you got it.
Mm-hmm.
And then found the information out somehow. I don't know, probably through doctors or hospital or something.
Well, I remember Dad saying that AD was in the hospital for a real long time.
It was. And when she came home, somebody had given her a little puppy. And that was Peggy. They had Peggy until she died of old age. And she was a little brown and white dog. I thought that was the cutest little thing I had ever seen. So Peggy had puppies one time, and they gave me one. And I had that little dog until I was a sophomore in high school. All the moving around we did. My dad moved a lot, and after, well, it was probably 19.
I guess we better head on out.
Alrighty, well, it's been a good visit.
It has been a really good visit.
Oh, do you want to stay with me?
No, we better not.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what we're going to be doing in the morning.
Yeah.
And I don't think you're going to get enough rest tonight. You're
You're probably
taking a nap
worn
in the
out already.
afternoon and missed it.
Well, I got up early this morning, but that's okay. I won't feel it until Wednesday.
Great.
But I may stay in bed all Wednesday. I don't know. I haven't decided.